Hello, Cleveland, and welcome back to another edition of the Dogland Podcast. I am your host, Jackson McCurry. Had an episode planned for today. We were going to talk post-combine stuff with the Doglands draft guy, Alex Hale, but after what happened Monday with all the new Browns news and then the big news across the NFL on Tuesday, kind of had to scrap plans. That draft episode will be coming down the pipeline in the near future, but I don't have Alex with me, but I do have one of our other awesome contributors over at the Dogland. It's the one, the only Jack Duffin joining us tonight. Jack, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. There's exciting things happening, and I'll save it for a little bit later. But there is a massive move today that I think opens up just for the Browns.
Interesting. There's been so much that has happened in the last 2 days. It was like everybody got back to Indy, and then the bombs just started getting dropped across the NFL. It's insane. Let's actually start with the one that happened on Monday because it does pertain to the Browns, and it was a name that could have been moved in a trade this offseason. That was Calvin Ridley. The Browns were linked to him as recent as Monday morning. Jared Mueller, the Browns Wire, mentioned it. Jordan Schultz, who I think was formerly with ESPN, also linked the Browns to Calvin Ridley. But lo and behold, Calvin Ridley is not playing football in the NFL, at least through 2022 season, because he is indefinitely suspended for gambling on the NFL. And it's so funny because you got DraftKings, you got FanDuel, all like spot supporters of the NFL working with the NFL. And here, one of the players was betting on games, I'm assuming through one of these mobile betting apps, not only betting on games, but betting on his own team. And Jack, I know you are a big gambler over there in London. Kind of a shame because Calvin Ridley is such a talented player, could have been a potential trade target for the Browns. Now he won't even see the football field for at least 2022.
Yeah, quite frankly, anyone betting on the Falcons should be banned. It's not good practice. It's tempting at times, but it's not good. So, no, it was the best move for all parties. And it's been one that's quite long down the pipeline because it came out that the Falcons were told about this, I think, in the 8th, 9th of Feb, and they've been rejecting all trade calls since then because they knew what was happening. So what's going to occur with this contract is it's a write-off for 2022, and he's then got that 11.1 million in 2023, but it's now going to be a non-guaranteed contract. For me, it makes sense for the Falcons just to let that roll, and then if they want to trade him or something next year, they can then go ahead and do that. I don't think his stock's going to go down at all because, hey, it seems like a one-off event. He gambled over a 5-day period and stopped. It's not like he kept this thing going. He wasn't trading on inside information or anything that's going to judge his character. He was betting on the Falcons to win. And quite frankly, it's one of those things that I don't think players should be betting on games, but I have no issue with if they want to bet on their team to win. If they want to bet on, say you're Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and you want to do a deal with, say, Caesars Casino and put $1 million down for you to win the Super Bowl, to win MVP, all that sort of stuff. I don't mind positive betting because what, quite frankly, is the difference between what you do and putting incentives in your contract. If there is anything in there for a negative, anything like that, then it's horrendous. You cannot do that. If he was betting against the Falcons, really, really dodgy. If he wants to bet on the Falcons going into the season for Falcons to win the Super Bowl, go for it. I've got no issue with that, but I think that's sort of the really clear divide that the team should make. And yeah, if players want to bet on themselves to win and their team to win or them to win individual accolades, go for it. Because what is the difference between that bet and what they do with an incentive in their contract?
Yeah, I think if you're betting on the team, it's one thing. If you're on the team, like if he was still playing and betting against the Falcons, then I think it would be even more shady because then you look into potential point shaving. You could be like being lackluster on the field, like throwing the game essentially. That's where I think it would get shady. And it's not a surprise. This isn't the first time an NFL player has gambled and gotten busted for it. This stuff happened back in the 60s, happened in the 80s, and it just happened a couple years ago. I seen a player, he got suspended for I think at least a year, and I don't even know if he's in the league anymore. I forget the dude's name because they listed off the players that have been connected to gambling. But yeah, he bet on the Falcons when he wasn't with the team. It was against Jacksonville, so pretty sure he did win money off that because Jacksonville was a dumpster fire at that point. That was towards the end of the Urban Meyer era.
Was a 3-team, a 5-team, and an 8-team parlay, and it hasn't come out what the other teams were. But it's one of those. I think they should bring it above board, make it fine for the players to gamble, because they're allowed to gamble, as far as I'm aware, on fantasy football, but they're not allowed to gamble on the actual game, which is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
But make it above board and go, look, you can bet plus bets. So your team to win, your team, you as an individual to win something, whether it's I'm Aaron Rodgers and I'm going to put $1 million down on me to be MVP. Go for it. As I think, for me, I have no issue with that, because if I'm betting on Aaron Rodgers potentially to be MVP and I see Aaron Rodgers puts down $1 million for him to win MVP, then I'm like, wow, this guy's invested in it as well. Because what is the difference between that and incentive in a contract? And I think bring it above board. And if you want, any time a player bets, it has to be publicly announced by the NFL. And they just do a daily betting thing, but they can only bet then on plus stuff. So if Baker wants to bet on the Browns to win a game, go for it. But have that clear and in front, because what is the difference between that and incentive in a contract? Nothing, I would argue.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that the NFL is obviously going to have to work through, because, more sports, but more states are legalizing gambling. There's going to be sports books in the stadiums in due time. I know Ohio, they just agreed. I think Caesars is opening a sports book inside the Cavs arena. There's going to be one at First Energy Stadium. There's going to be one at Progressive Field where the Guardians are playing whenever the lockout ends for baseball. But it's becoming a more prominent thing. The NFL is going to have to start implementing rules so the players understand them. It's just a shame for Calvin Ridley, a talented receiver, was going to be sought after, obviously, in the trade market. Kudos to the Falcons for not doing bad business and trying to trade him off, knowing he was being investigated. That's a good thing, because it would have been typical Cleveland Browns fashion. They would have traded for Calvin Ridley, and then boom, the suspension would have happened. These same type of things happen, but hopefully, Ridley doesn't have a gambling problem like he tweeted out Monday when the news went down. Hopefully this isn't a continuation thing. And hopefully he comes back, learns his lesson, learns something from his punishment, and comes back still the same productive receiver we've seen on the field before all this.
The dude's old, though. So it was even one, if the Browns went after him, I think they might have traded a third, and then they'd have kept him for a year, tagged him and let him go. They weren't going to extend him long term, because it just did not make sense for the Browns. The same way they don't draft old dudes, I don't think they were going to trade a second rounder, and that was his market. So no, it's one that it just didn't make too much sense. But unfortunately, it is another dude off the table. And we needed many dudes on the table at wide receiver as possible so that we can get some.
Yes, and we'll get to the other wide receiver news in a little bit. But you did mention Aaron Rodgers, and we finally got the decision. It was courtesy of Pat McAfee, which isn't a surprise that it was him breaking the story. Aaron Rodgers is coming back to play football, and it is for the Green Bay Packers. We don't know the new contract yet, because McAfee and Rodgers both disputed Ian Rappaport's report of a 4-year, $200 million extension with the Packers. But Aaron Rodgers is coming back. He's still going to play for Green Bay. So that domino obviously fell. And I feel like that was the first one that needed to fall in terms of the whole offseason, because it seemed like Rodgers was holding everything up. And then the avalanche just started pushing through of all the big news. Obviously, the next one we'll get to in a moment. But thoughts on Rodgers coming back?
I just love the moment when McAfee tweeted. It was amazing. A source has told me about Aaron Rodgers. We know who that source is. That is Aaron Rodgers. And it was like, why did he even try to claim it was a source? It was like everyone knows you are not tweeting anything about Aaron Rodgers without Aaron Rodgers telling you. It was just the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. When how can you straight face even write that tweet and go, a source has told me Aaron Rodgers signed a contract and is staying. Aaron Rodgers told you that.
Well, the best part was on his show, which I don't know if you've ever watched Pat McAfee's show because it is hilarious. Pat McAfee goes, well, a source Sis called me this morning, and we all know who called you, and he was like, yeah, we're still finalizing things, but he goes, my source Sis are telling me that Aaron Rodgers is coming back, and I'm like, we all knew it. He's like trying to say it with a straight face, but we all knew it. But yeah, I mean, it's good. Aaron Rodgers obviously is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, 2-time defending MVP. He still can play too. I'm glad he's not like going to do the retirement comeback thing. Obviously, they said he waited, and he obviously weighed going to Denver. But ultimately, I think he got what he wanted out of Green Bay. They tagged Davante Adams. They've obviously reworked some stuff to be able to fit it all in. And his new contract's obviously going to make it to where they can keep some key pieces there to make another run towards the Super Bowl next year.
It's going to be really interesting to see when it comes out, how it's structured, what they do, because everything says is heavily backloaded because they've obviously somehow got the ability to franchise tag Davante Adams, which seemed like it was never going to happen without an insane amount of roster moves. And it's going to be fascinating. And Joel Corey, who's one of the ex-agent, one of the best follows you can find on Twitter about the salary cap, has said what he really needs to ask for is a roster bonus in his second year, because that way it's fully guaranteed. They can't claim it back the same way as what's happened with Tom Brady is he's had to give some money back because he's retired and the team can claim it against him. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see how that contract's structured. And you would think they're probably going to hammer out a long-term deal with Davante Adams too somehow. And it's probably going to be heavily backloaded as well, to where this $18 million franchise tag, he won't be making $18 million this year. I mean, he'll be making a significant amount of money, but the cap number is going to be so low because they're going to squeeze everybody in this year and probably next year to try to go for a couple more Super Bowl runs and try to keep as much talent on the team as possible, because they have to re-sign Jair Alexander to a new deal as well. So Green Bay's front office has a lot of work to do this coming off season. It's going to be interesting to see how it all fits, because I got people telling me like Green Bay's not going to be able to keep all their talent. These GMs find a way to squeeze it all in there into the salary cap. So they'll find a way.
They'll lose some of the middle tier,
the
same as the Saints did last year with Emmanuel Sanders, several of the other guys. But yeah, the Jair Alexander one's going to be interesting because it looked like they were going to be forced to do it before the deadline. The fact they haven't announced anything seems like they're not going to get that before the deadline. And the longer they can leave that, and we can get that Ward deal in, because what's probably going to happen is the first deal that gets signed is going to be for 102.5 million over 5 years, and the second deal that gets signed will be for 105 million over 5 years. So whatever the second deal is $500,000 a year. It's irrelevant in the grand scheme of things when you're paying that much money for a player, but it's just kind of how these things roll.
So after Jair Alexander and JC Jackson get their deals, Denzel Ward,
JC Jackson's won't be that much.
Are you do think that?
I don't think he will. I think he might get 20 million a year. I can't see him breaching 20 million a year.
So let's get ours done first, so we save $500,000. We'll get those. I don't think it matters, honestly, at the end of the day. Based on how it's structured.
Yeah, I don't think it will happen before, purely because if you're Ward, why are you rushing a deal? And if you're the team, hey, we've got so much bigger stuff on our plate of getting Njoku to sign a deal, getting all these free agents and people to sign deals, that it's not going to be a priority. If it was going to be a priority, they'd have done it last season. So yeah. Hashtag sign JC Jackson and trading Ward for a first and a third pound pick. Just putting it out there. If the front office is going to be crazy enough to do it, it's these guys.
You're not wrong. I mean, but that's a whole nother discussion for another day.
Would you do
it? Would I do it?
Yeah.
No,
So you signed JC Jackson first, and you've got there's no risk there.
So you're signing JC Jackson, then you're trading Denzel for what?
A first and a third. It could be a first and a second, but I'm set the floor at a first and a third.
I'd probably do it. I'd probably do it.
Day long.
I don't know. I always worry about Belichick letting guys go. Look at Jamie Collins. Look how that bit
Fear the Browns. Fear the Browns. A lockdown corner versus some dodgy linebacker is
I get it.
Different thing.
I always cringe when Belichick lets guys go. It makes me wonder what's up.
Hey, you let Chandler Jones go. He's not bad.
That's true. That's very true. Hopefully future Cleveland Brown, Chandler Jones.
No, because too expensive.
You don't know that.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That dude's great.
He is. Getting back on track. So Denver was obviously in the sweepstakes for Aaron Rodgers, and about an hour after Aaron Rodgers announced his decision via Pat McAfee, Denver pulled off probably one of the biggest trades in NFL history to acquire Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks. What a significant trade package that Denver gave to get Russell Wilson. They sent 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, a 5th-round pick, quarterback Drew Lock, tight end Noah Fant, and defensive lineman Shelby Harris, all for Russell Wilson, who has 2 years left on his deal, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be getting a new contract, just like Aaron Rodgers is getting a new contract. But Denver, with a very talented roster, gets their franchise quarterback that they haven't had since Peyton Manning. And the AFC West may have just become, if it wasn't already, the best division of football when you just look at their starting quarterbacks alone, because you got Mahomes with the Chiefs, Herbert with the Chargers, now Russell Wilson with the Broncos, and Derek Carr with the Raiders. That's going to be a fun division to watch for sure, and see how that one shakes out.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It was such a massive trade, and I'm happy in a way it was a massive trade because I'm not sat there going, or it was Drew Lock a first and a second next year, and I'm sat there going, well, what? Why are you sat on your hands, Andrew Berry? And you're having those sort of discussions. I do not care with the size of this trade. As you said, it was Baker Mayfield, Njoku, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a 5th for Russell Wilson and a 4th. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not up for trading that. If it was Baker a 1st and a 2nd, then I'm like, yeah, go on then.
All day.
But I want it to be at such a level that I'm like, nah, I'm out here. Because, yeah, of course Andrew Berry called. I've got no doubt that Andrew Berry called. If someone was trading like a fullback for a 7th-round pick swap, Andrew Berry's calling just to be like, hey, what's going on here? So Andrew Berry sniffed around it and he was like, nah. And quite frankly, at that price, I'm a no as well. So really happy with that, but there is one shining diamond to come out of this trade.
And it's the fact that Seattle's defensive tackle, Al Woods, is now a free man.
Everything's pointing to Al Woods being a free agent. So yes. Al Woods, pack your bags. I'm going to give you $2 million. Come to Cleveland. Solid defensive tackle. He's going to play about 50% of snaps, I think. Sat out the pandemic year, but came back last year and had a good year. And I just think it's a no-brainer move for the Browns. Pair him up with Taven Bryant, and let's see what's going on.
Yeah, I think that obviously makes the defensive tackle room and free agency a little bit more exciting. To get a guy like Al Woods potentially would be awesome. The thing with the Russell Wilson trade, I do agree with you. I'm sure Andrew Berry sniffed around at the idea, seeing what Seattle was asking for, probably wouldn't have done it, especially maybe the draft picks, but I don't think adding all the players in the way Denver did, I don't see that being potential. My thing is there's people in Browns Twitter, and Jack, I know you don't follow them, and I usually don't chime in on this. People saying that, Andrew Berry didn't try to make this trade, or he's on the hot seat because he swung and missed on getting another quarterback. At the end of the day, Russell Wilson had a no trade clause. He picked where he wanted to go. We've seen the reports late last week. The Commanders offered 3 first-round picks to Seattle, and it was turned down. I strongly believe that he did not want to go. He said in an interview he loved being on the West Coast. All his family was out on the West Coast, which made me think if Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to Denver, Russell Wilson was going to be the next option. So, like, to those that are criticizing Andrew Berry on this one, why are we doing this? I guarantee he tried. He made a call seeing what Seattle would want. But at the end of the day, it was all about where Russell Wilson wanted to go. And Jake Burns even said it. No one's ever going to want to come to Cleveland. I mean, it's not, unless you're getting offered a big time contract or you're familiar with the scheme or the coaches, it's not very likely that a player is going to come out and say, I want to come to Cleveland. It's not like we got guys like LeBron James growing on trees saying, I want to play in Cleveland. It just doesn't happen in practically any sport. And that's just a sad state of affairs. And sometimes you just have to face those facts.
I'm skeptical on that stuff because for me, if you're an edge, yeah, I want to come to Cleveland because going to Cleveland
let me
generates
reemphasize
more money. I think there's lots of routes where it does actually work out. And if we go for a playoff run or if Baker continues that trajectory earlier, I think I want to go to the Cincinnati Bengals, who have a horrendous contract structure, one of the worst in the league because they won't pay guarantees into year 2. I get what people say with that, but I think the issues are wider than that on where the team's currently at. If we go back 2 years, I think free agents were genuinely jumping at the bit to go to Cleveland. It's all about what your QB trajectory is. If your QB is young and exciting and you think that, hey, I'm going to go get a ring here, you're going to come to Cleveland. And that, yes, Cleveland fans think that's because we're Cleveland. People think, oh, I don't want to go there. It's just because it's not pretty in terms of where are they going to go in the next year or two. If you had a better QB, and I think we'll get a better QB next year, people will genuinely be excited to come. And if Andrew Berry had made this move, as you say some people wanted, I'd be sat here absolutely ripping AB. And I love Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's my guy. I was that close. I could have easily been a Seattle fan and not been a Cleveland fan because of Russell Wilson. So if you're talking about QBs that I love in this league, he's right up there, if not number one. But this is not a trade I would have made. Never all day. Never in a million years would I. If they phone up and ask, oh, this is what we want, I wouldn't even go back with a rebuttal. I'd be like, no, I'm done. Not even getting into a conversation with you guys.
No, I mean, I don't think I would have given up 2 1s and 2 2s. I might have given up 3 1s for a quarterback, but not the players. Not the players, though, Jack. I'm not giving up 3 players and all these draft picks. I would have given up draft picks. I know that you're a big fan of the draft picks and everything, but when you have a chance to get a franchise quarterback, I don't think the cost is too great. I think this is a bit too much. I would have given up 3 first-round picks for Russell Wilson. I'd have given up 3 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers or any of these other top quarterbacks. We don't like talking about Deshaun Watson, but if he gets cleared, which his thing's getting presented to a grand jury this week, if he's a cleared man, give up 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson. Because if you don't have the franchise quarterback, nothing matters at this point.
Well, if he's cleared, let's go crazy.
Yes, but unfortunately,
I go crazier on. Yeah, I agree with you there. They're more desperate than us, but yeah, if the case is 2 first-round picks and Baker Mayfield, then Baker Mayfield get on a bloody plane.
Goodbye and enjoy your statue. In
check social media because I'll tweet you the flight.
Do it. Let's get to the Browns news because there was some Browns news on Monday. They were quite busy. Let's start with the big one. David Njoku. We expected long-term deal. Wait, did I miss something?
Not starting with the fullback news. Oh,
no, we're not. Okay, you know what? For you, Jack, because you're my guest, / co-host. We'll start with the fullback news. Andy Janovich, Pro Bowl alternate fullback, has been solid for us, whether as a blocker on special teams. The Browns decided to decline his. I didn't even realize he had an option in his contract until it was reported. But they have declined the option. He is going to be a free agent on the 16th, scheduled to make $1.6 million. But Jack, we kind of seen the writing on the wall when his snap count got essentially split in half from 2020 to 2021. But You can't say anything bad about Janovich. You know, he did his job. He was solid in his roles, whether it was as the blocking fullback or, you know, being an ace on special teams. But just seems like the Browns wanted to use that 1.6 million potentially somewhere else.
Yeah, lots of fans, they get upset because Browns roster a fullback. How much production do you get from like running back 4 and running and tight end 4? Because that's genuinely what we're talking about. It's like, well, you could have a 4th running back or a 4th tight end. These dudes aren't offering nothing either. They're irrelevant on the roster. So if you've got a head coach and offensive play caller that wants a fullback for some weird stuff, then let him have it. Because you are not, it's not like you're going, oh, I'll get rid of Kareem Hunt, a running back 2, so I can roster a fullback. It's not. You're talking about Dontrell Hilliard as your running back 4 or Stephen Carlson as your tight end 4. We'll only keep one of these 2 because we're going to roster a fullback. So firstly, lots of fans get really upset when they shouldn't have to. And I was surprised with this move because I thought when Johnny Football, Mr. Stanton, came in during the COVID outbreak for Janovich and played well, that if they wanted to keep Stanton, that was the moment. He scored a touchdown. He's done some impressive stuff. Well, if you want to make a move, now is the obvious time to do it. You allow Janovich to go and you bring Stanton in, because if you went back to Janovich, then you exposed Johnny Football to waivers, and suddenly any team in the league can pick him up before you as the Browns have a chance to bring him back. So for me, that was the moment when I went, obviously Stanton's not that guy, which could have changed, but I'm skeptical if he is the guy they want to bring back. So he might get a practice squad spot and they might look to elevate him. But I tweeted, it was like 4 hours before the deadline, nicking a guy off of a divisional rival in the Baltimore Ravens, Patrick Ricard. Similar height. He's plus like 60 pounds, but he can double as a tight end 4, which Janovich can't double as a tight end 4. It's not his game. I just think that's an interesting proposition. He'd be slightly more. He might be about $2 million a year, but he wants to do some different stuff. And if you want a head coach that's going to scheme up some different stuff, do some crazy bits and pieces, I don't hate it. And if you're going to go out and draft a young tight end and potentially go with Njoku, Harrison Bryant, a young tight end, and Patrick Ricard, I don't mind that, especially if it's just for a year or 2. So he's one to keep an eye on. Hey, I was up for keeping Johnny Football, but I think they signaled to us Johnny Football isn't the guy when they allowed him to hit waivers.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. They did bring Stanton back on a future deal in January, so he's obviously going to be here through camp. It is so funny you mentioned Patrick Ricard, because Sunday morning when me and Anthony recorded, he mentioned Patrick Ricard as a potential idea or addition to the Browns roster as a fullback / tight end hybrid type role. So that'll be interesting. If we could pluck him from Baltimore, that would be even better. To get anything from your division rival that could be a positive to the Browns, obviously a negative to them is always a good idea. But yeah, I'm sure Janovich will land somewhere. Obviously, he's still playing at a solid level. Whoever uses fullback still, not too many teams do. Maybe he goes to Baltimore and it's a swap. We get Ricard, they get Janovich. I mean, that's a interesting proposition.
There's only about 12, I think, rostered in the league that play snaps. There might be more than that because I only look at the ones that play snaps. Because if you look at like PFF's data set, they'll only show like fullbacks that play or wide receivers or running backs, etc. that play. So I think you're looking around 12, maybe slightly above that a season. So it could be tough.
Yeah, and all I know is when the news went down on Monday, I'm sure Tony Grossi was holding a candlelight vigil somewhere for Andy. So, well, best wishes going forward.
Press up, Tony.
Yes. So getting back to the bigger news on Monday, David Njoku, we thought He's either going to get a new multi-year deal or he was going to get the franchise tag. Lo and behold, he does get the franchise tag. Is scheduled to make 10.9 million guaranteed for this upcoming season, unless the Browns hammer out a long-term deal between now and July 15th or whenever he signs that franchise tender. But we all expected something to happen with Njoku, and lo and behold, he's going to be back at least for one more year with Cleveland. There's a report out there from NFL Network that the Browns have an offer on the table that will pay him around 13 million per year, which would be top 5 tight end money. A lot of us in the Browns Twitter community are disputing that, because if that is indeed true, why isn't Njoku signed it already? Jack, your thoughts on all that?
So I've always felt like the tag would be the obvious route, and it seemed the sensible thing to do, of go, hey, let's tag the guy. He's only young. And if he does well, we can sign him to an extension that gives him 2 guaranteed years. Because generally, if you're talking about giving someone a 3 or 4 year extension, the first 2 years are guaranteed. So however you structure that, and you can backload it the same way they've done with Hooper, but the first 2 years of the contract are guaranteed money. I don't dispute the 13 million average per year. But what I think could easily be the case is, well, actually what they were offering was a 1 year, 12 million deal with 3 years of option bonuses on the back end or something. And that might be the issue. If they're offering him a 13 million a year and say it's got a 2 year, 27.5 million guaranteed, if he isn't getting on a plane instantly and flying to Cleveland and signing that, then I've got no idea what he's up to. Because I get it. If there's only 1 year guaranteed in it, if I'm him, I don't sign it. I force the franchise tag and I take that and then work out what you want to do. But if there's genuinely 2 years of guarantees over 25 million, ideally 27.5, I think is a good threshold for him to get, then you sign that deal all day long. So that's always the one thing I get skeptical of, because if we look at like Alvin Kamara, he signed this deal and everyone's like, wow, he signed like, I forget what it was. It was like 20 million a year average. And it's like, yeah, the last year was like 45 million or something ridiculous. And so it just pumped up these numbers that weren't real. So it's why I always look at deals of, right, what's the guaranteed money? And then what is the money on the back end? Because if you sign a deal and like the final year is 25 million not guaranteed, well, we just write that off. What is the front end of it? So yeah, I've got a feeling the 13 million might be true, but the Browns aren't really a team we haven't seen them firing out deals that are just nonsense and stuff like that. So yeah, they seem committed to signing a deal, and I think a deal is going to come through. They've got until the 15th of July, so they've got a long, long time to get a deal done. If 13 million's on the table, a deal will get done.
Yeah, I do think so too. And they do have plenty of time. Like you said, they have 4 months and 1 week from the time of this recording to get a deal done with David Njoku. And I do think they will get one done. The interesting report after Njoku gets the tag, and this is from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, he's saying that the Browns are planning on keeping Austin Hooper around, who's due, I think, 11 million this year. Obviously, we've talked about it constantly. Are they going to cut him? Could they potentially trade him? I know that's been bantied about by some people. But keeping both tight ends, obviously New England has 2 tight ends making 12.5 million per year on average. It's not out of possibility that the Browns keep both, but I think a lot of us were surprised by the report because we all thought Njoku's getting tagged and eventually signed to a long-term deal. The writing's on the wall for Austin Hooper.
And for me, I wasn't that surprised with this news, because if you're Jeremy Fowler, say you reach out to someone of the Browns and you go, hey, are you going to cut Austin Hooper? Their response is going to be no. And so Jeremy Fowler then runs an article and says, spoke to the Browns, they're not cutting Austin Hooper. And that for me was sort of what happened on his end for the media. And if you're the Browns, you're looking at 3 different things to fall before you cut Austin Hooper. 1, sign a free agent wide receiver. And there's lots of scare stories about, well, the Browns are going to go into free agency. No wide receiver is going to want to sign. They'll do all right in other positions, but no wide receiver is going to want to sign. Baker Mayfield, career killer, all this other nonsense. I think they'll be all right because they can offer opportunities to a guy that might not be looking at a wide receiver one share, and they can come in and then thrive in Cleveland, because how many teams can offer potentially a DJ Shark wide receiver one share of like the snaps, the targets and stuff like that. So I think they'll be okay. But hey, there's no guarantees for Landry or Hooper. So until you speak to someone next week and they go, yeah, I'll sign, why cut either of those guys? The second is, why not assess the trade market? They've tagged Njoku and they haven't had that long to assess it. And people are like, oh no, they can't trade for that guy. That guy's if he gets traded to a new team, he's the 9th most expensive tight end in the league, which isn't crazy. And he's going to be on the same money as like Zach Ertz, Evan Ingram, Seattle tight end Gerald Everett. And there's another guy in there, but none of them wow. And if you're going to tell me you're going to pay the same amount of money for Evan Ingram, and you're potentially going to guarantee 2 years of that deal versus trade a 6th round pick for Austin Hooper, you got $9.5 million. If you want to walk away from him before the end of training camp, you don't have to pay him a penny as a team. That has to appeal to a team that is going, hey, the top 3 targets in the tight end market just got taken. The Browns are probably going to want a 5th or 6th, because if it's a 7th, well, do they want to take that extra dead cap this year rather than splitting it across 2 years? And the final thing is, if they want to convince Hooper to Njoku to sign a deal, don't cut Hooper just yet, because that weakens your leveraging position, because you can threaten the, hey, well, go into next season, we'll keep Hooper, and if Hooper plays better than you, you've been on a franchise tag, you haven't done well, and then, yeah, next team's going to pay you $5 million. Bye. Whereas if you cut Hooper, you give the strength in the negotiations to Njoku. So I think if those 3 things happen in a week's time, and it's only a week, it's not like we're talking about 6 months of keeping on to him, a week's time, he'll then get cut or traded for a 6th, 5th round pick, and it will go. So it just seemed like a no-brainer. And I think lots of people are panicking over something that I get why Jeremy Fowler's reporting that, but don't read too much into
it. That's very true. And you did bring up a good point with Njoku, Gesicki, and Schultz all getting the franchise tag. That's 3 tight ends off the market. There could be a trade market for Austin Hooper potentially over the next week. My thing is, will the Browns stomach $11.2 million in dead money for just a 5th or 6th round pick for Austin Hooper, instead of cutting him with a post June 1st and saving more money?
I think they can backload Njoku, all these other free agents and other people they're going to sign, that it doesn't matter whether you split that over this and that. So if they get a 6th, yeah, they'll be fine. They'll find a way to do it, because I think my template for an extension with Njoku, it comes down at 4 or 4.5 million. I tweeted it a couple of days ago, so
yeah,
you can jump on my Twitter and find it. But yeah, peanuts.
Interesting. And then the last little bit of Browns news from Monday, they did tender 3 of their exclusive rights free agents. Wide receiver Jamarcus Bradley, who will make $895,000, along with offensive lineman Michael Dunn. And then they also tendered Blake Hance, who is scheduled to make $825,000. These are all 1-year contracts. They did not tender their other exclusive rights free agents, Dexter Williams, Montreal Meander, and of course Malik McDowell, which we knew because Mary Kay reported that last week during the combine that McDowell wouldn't be back. But the Bradley, Dunn, and Hance, not a surprise. All have been obviously been developed through the Browns practice squad or being on the roster the last couple of years. Hance started 8 games last year. Dunn started 2 games. Bradley made a couple catches last year late in one of the late season games, but all guys that come in and be competition in depth potentially at their key positions.
Yeah, I think Dunn for me is the only one that I feel good about making the roster. I think he's probably going to be backup center or backup guard, depending on how it shakes out. Hans is going to be in there for the competition, but all three of those guys could easily, if they don't make the roster, they would want to keep them on the practice squad. Whether another team would take them, who knows? Montreal Meander, I think if he hadn't, I think it was an Achilles injury. I want to say November, but he's not going to be around for camp. When he's cleared, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually signs straight to the practice squad. So keep an eye on him. But yeah, it's one where everything's as and when. I'd keep an eye out. They've got until the 15th to tender Dearness Johnson. I think they'll do that, even if they don't want to keep him around, tender him and then trade him or something else. It just makes sense, really.
Yeah, for sure. That's something to definitely keep an eye on in the next couple of weeks. Also, one quick note, because, the Browns have been connected to the wide receiver position. We talked about it on the last episode, me and Anthony. 3 of the Browns' potential targets at the wide receiver position went off the board on Tuesday. Obviously, the Packers tagged Devontae Adams. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers tagged Chris Godwin. And then Mike Williams is going to be signing a 3-year deal with the Los Angeles Chargers for $60 million, $40 million guaranteed. He's making $28 million in the first year. Still waiting on Amari Cooper news. He's been linked to the Browns, but Jack, it seems like some of the wide receiver market's starting to dry up for the Browns potentially. There's still some big names out there: Allen Robinson, DJ Chark, a couple other names as well. Christian Kirk. I don't know how likely he would be a Browns target, but some of the names are drying up, and we're still waiting on a decision on Jarvis Landry. Could be a chance Juice comes back. I doubt it, but it's going to be something to watch over the next week or so.
Get me Allen Robinson and Russell Gage, and then
I keep forgetting
Baker
about Russell
Mayfield
Gage.
can phone up Joe Burrow and steal one of his victory cigars and just put his feet up in the living room and enjoy life.
I'm all for it.
Those are the 2 guys I really, really want. There's some other nice pieces out there. I don't think it's going to be as grim in free agency as people think. Yeah, do I think we get Russell Gage? Russell Gage, probably. If he does hit the market and they don't try to keep him, Allen Robinson, probably not. But I think they're going to roll around with a load of money and they will pay whoever agrees to come. They are not rolling into free agent with Donovan Peoples-Jones as wide receiver 1. Not happening.
Not a chance. I'm sure Barry's got something up his sleeve. They've also been connected to Robbie Anderson. Jared Mueller, the Browns Wire, reported that. I would not mind bringing Robbie Anderson here. He's been plagued by Sam Darnold as his quarterback. Let's see what he could do with Baker Mayfield as his quarterback. He's been pretty solid for the Jets and the Panthers, so be interesting to see how that one will play out.
It's certainly one that's in play. I just think these guys are going to get traded for more picks than I'm willing to give up. So draft these guys and let's see what happens. And if Nelson Aguilar gets cut, and Nelson Aguilar is wide receiver 2, I am up for. If they want to give me a pick to eat that $5 million that he's due, give me that pick. Give me a 4th, and you can have our 6th or something, and we'll take $5 million of that Nelson Aguilar deal happily.
Absolutely. I would take Nelson Aguilar too. He played pretty well for the Raiders a couple years ago. Didn't work out in New England last year, but I'd take a chance on him with the Browns. I do think they're going to add some veterans to this wide receiver room for sure.
And it's just one that works well, that if you sign Robinson and then you bring in Aguilar for 1 year, well, if you're going to have 2 draft picks plus DPJ plus Schwartz plus Felton, well, I quite like the fact that there's only going to be 1 year on Aguilar's deal and he's gone. Because if you get to the end of camp and you get 2 of these young guys beating him out, you can then trade him onto someone else and eat that $5 million. Or just eat that $5 million and cut him and go, hey, we got a 4th for a 7th or something. Happy days. So, I play the game. We know they're happy to eat cap for picks, so why not?
For sure. Jack, the offseason's heating up. We are 6 days away from illegal tampering. Business is about to pick up.
Let's get tampering. I absolutely love it. It's the best week in the whole NFL calendar. Give me any week of the season. Give me over Super Bowl. Give me over the draft. This first week is bananas.
For sure. Can't wait for it. Jack, you got anything coming down the pipeline soon?
I think we're both double header appearing on Stephen Thomas's. Is it Saturday he drops it? Mock draft.
The dueling mock drafts. Yes.
Yeah, it's spicy, guys. I give you a sneak peek. I'm drafting the quarterback, and it is great. So head over there Saturday, and I promise you, if that isn't the single best free agency class and draft you've ever seen, then quite frankly, you're drunk. Go to bed. You had too much fun on Friday.
Yeah, I haven't even done mine yet. This is Tuesday night. Obviously, I got to work on it, but Jackson's going to be hard to beat because he sent his over to me, and I'm just like, damn, how am I going to top this one? But definitely check it out over at the OBR on Saturday. Jack and I are both part of the Saturday dueling mock drafts that our friend Stephen Thomas, aka Browns Mock Draft, puts out every Saturday. I don't know who our other competition is, but Jack, you might be the man to beat so far.
Hey, I've done many mock drafts in that, and nothing looks as pretty as that did.
Right. But you guys can follow Jack Duffin over on Twitter at Jack Duffin. That's DUFFIN. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack McCurry08 and the Dogland. You can check out on Twitter at the Dogland as well as thedogland.com. Until next time, Browns fans, as we get on out of here, go Browns.
Go Browns.